Welcome back, everybody, to another Real Talk special edition. As usual, I am here. My name is Emma G. I'm the founder. I'm the founder of the Capital Group Collective. Joined here by six beautiful faces of the Capital Group Collective. I can't count. It is Sunday. I have been in rest all day, but the fight doesn't stop. Just because we take a few hours off does not mean that we stay silent, does not mean that we stop fighting. And so we're here. We're here to come back at you with some love, with some empowering messages, with some gratitude in our attitudes, and some positive messaging on how we as a community can continue this fight with positivity in our hearts, music in our lives, and that fighting spirit. So if you are new to this game, let's do a quick rapid fire introduction of who everybody is. I haven't put the names up yet, but Dro, do you want to introduce yourself quickly first, my love?
Sure. My name is Dro Williams. I am a vocalist, songwriter, actor, entrepreneur, artivist. We'll learn more about that term as we all go along. But just happy once again to be on these talks because this is how I firmly believe that we'll make change, and we'll see some things start to happen. So it's good to see everybody on here, and hope we have a very productive discussion.
No doubt, no doubt.
Hey, Stephanie Mathias, singer-songwriter, violinist, also entrepreneur, mental health advocate, and yeah, I'm just excited to add anti-racist to that list. Been doing a lot of work on myself and trying to keep up with all the information as best as I can. So I'm just glad that we can be here and talk.
Hello, I'm Billy Mayfield. I'm a musician, singer, songwriter, actor, and I also work in corporate and broadcast television production. Good to see everybody.
Daniel?
I am Daniel Hill. I'm a local musician, and I don't know, try to contribute to as much of the creative and arts and positive culture community inside of CGC and outside. I'm very grateful to be here and to be a part of this conversation. I love my diverse group of creative friends. This is amazing to be here with you all. Thank you.
Nick?
Hey everyone, I'm Nick DePinto. I'm a singer, songwriter, musician in the Washington, D.C. area. I also make my living as a professional actor. I do photography, I do painting. I'm one of those people that does all that stuff. And I'm always interested in growing and learning. It's a lifelong journey. So I'm always honored to be a part of the things that we get to do here at Capital Group Collective. That's me.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Solia. I am Solia, and I'm a singer-songwriter here in the DC area, and one of the managing members of Capital Group Collective. And I do everything from sing, write, songwriting, violin. I'm an all-around person, music person.
Which is what we love. What we love. And so thank you guys all for joining us today. If you are unaware of what's going on, please wake up. We are, going through obviously this massive pandemic that's been rampaging the world, and now we are here doing a whole bunch of, I feel like there's been in the realm of being quarantined and still recognizing that we have to function and live our lives. Those who are living in their lives of darker complexion are thus being murdered. And because it's about time, 2020, the year of the uprising, I think, in a lot of ways, a big movement has spread across the country and across the world as a result, where we are now fighting artivists being artistic activists. And I'm thrilled that Capital Groove Collective seems to be this, it didn't start off this way in my head, but we have grown into this beautiful community of artistic activists that are doing all kinds of amazing things. So one of the questions that I wanted to really kickstart this chat off with is how do we as human beings, as artists, as functioning societies, functioning in quotation marks, how do we continue to keep the momentum going? You know, I feel like a lot of movements in the past have kind of started off with a gung-ho and then they've kind of fizzled out pretty quickly, and it doesn't seem to be the case, which I'm really grateful for personally, that, you know, this movement of recognizing that Black lives do in fact matter, just like, you know, carrots truly are a vegetable, Black lives do matter. If anybody's seen that meme before, I don't know, maybe that was a woo. But you know, if you know, the movement doesn't seem to be slowing down, but I think there's a lot of worry that if we stopped, you know, how do we keep things going? How do we keep fighting? How do we keep our spirits high during this time? Over to you guys.
I'll just go ahead and just go in the order that we kind of introduced ourselves. Personally, I think that one of the things that we did as a collective, which we'll talk about kind of later in this discussion, was one of the ways that we all kind of came together and said, this is how we keep moving the needle forward. And that's using our gift and using our weapon, which is music. You know, writing songs and using your personal experience to vocalize what is happening in the climate right now. You know, a lot of things too is just continuing to engage your direct network and your community, because as you can see, this panel is very diverse. And while we are all connected, we don't all know the same circles. We don't all run in the same circles. So it's very important that we continue to have a lot of these talks off screen with people in our networks who may not know us personally. One story that I'll tell really quickly, and then I'll throw it over to, I believe Stephanie was next, or whoever's going to chime in. But over the past couple of weeks, I even had talks with some conservatives, people who think differently than me, about some issues, because I wanted to see where they were coming from, and they were also.
After somebody told me this was the key to the game, you best believe I'll be.
They were just as interested to see where I was coming from.
No, I couldn't finish off this little testosterone scene.
Yeah, Billy just having a good time over there. It's all good.
Technology is cruel. I apologize.
You good, man? No worries. I was almost in tune with what was going on. I was like, that's not me. But just saying, like, having those conversations, those tough conversations, are what is necessary. And so what we all found is that we have way more in common than we do separate. And I think once we get off social media and kind of start talking with each other and really see where everyone's head is at, you know, having a face-to-face discussion, that's really how we can continue to push that momentum forward.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I love what Jero said. I think that, you know, how do I say this? We shouldn't let certain political things divide us. And this should be an everyone thing, anti-racism, because we all have things that we need to work on. And we all, I believe that most of us do believe that Black Lives Matter. So, you know, and it's just, as I think the only discussions that we are having is how to address it, really. So I think, but those are hard questions. Anyway, what I was gonna also just add to ways to keep the momentum going. It's unfortunate, but for us lighter and brighter people, as Emma's been calling us, it's unfortunate, but we're getting burned out. And it's real. And I'm just bringing this up because it's like, I don't want it, you know, I don't want white people to be ashamed or anything. I just, at the same time, that doesn't mean like, but I've also seen people shut themselves completely, just like, oh, I give up, I'm burnt out, you know? So in order to avoid burnout, we've got to find ways to pace ourselves a little bit, right? I hope that I'm not offending my Black friends, because you guys are dealing with this every single day and it's a huge burden. And I want more than anything for that to be lifted off of you. And I'm going to do the best that I can. But I also just hoping that for people who are feeling like overwhelmed, just not to try not to be, to like find something that they can do every day, that keeps it going. Is that making sense? So yeah, that's what I would say. I would say try not to burn yourselves out, and that can keep the momentum going, because then it becomes a habit, you know. Fine. And even if it's something that that you catch yourself in a racist moment or something, I don't know, like that's think of that as progress, right? And but yeah, can just find something small that you can do every day, and that's going to keep it going.
Can I dig a little bit deeper with you for a minute, Stephanie, before we move on to somebody else answering?
Yeah.
What are some things that you are doing personally to find that, and like when you are finding that you're slipping a little bit, or that you're getting tired or overwhelmed, you know, doing a little bit each day, getting that habit of forward momentum when it comes to making, you know, whether it's, you know, lovingly calling out those around you who are maybe not as woke or awake as we would like. What are some ways in which you are practicing healthy forward motion?
Okay. I'm not really a conflict sort of person personally.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't like something that someone shared, I just ignore it. That's just sort of my thing. But I will share something that I agree with, you know, and I think that just doing that and promoting, and also promoting Black businesses, promoting Black people, like letting them share their voice, is one way. Another way is just listening. You know, I'm trying to open up my social media with an active sort of purpose to listen to different political views, different points of view from Black people. I want to hear their perspective. They're the ones that are being, you know, oppressed right now. And so, yeah, that's sort of my way to do it. But also, like I said, for me personally, checking my thoughts on a daily, constant basis. And those are the main things that I'm doing right now.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Does anybody else have any input?
The burnout factor, that's a lot, because many of you that don't look like me, you're dealing with sometimes some of the people that you love the most on the planet. Sometimes it's the love of your life, possibly, sadly, I hope not, or your parent, your sibling, uncles, grandparents, you know, especially the elders. They tend to be a lot more dug in. And so that can be stressing. And I will suggest that anybody who is not your blood, that you don't have to engage with, don't, because that's feeding your energy. That's diminishing your energy. That's diminishing your positive outlook and your activism. So, and that's hard, because again, sometimes it's your own flesh and blood, and that distraction and extraction can be very painful. And but at the end of the day, you still have to be whole inside. And I mean, I found myself recently getting rid of some folks on social media, because I got to the point that I understood that I couldn't have the conversation with them anymore, because it never even got to an impasse. it was always that way and that's it. And then they would insultingly give me images of Black people that don't think like me. And I extracted myself from some social groups where that dialogue was taking place, and I realized that I didn't need to be heard there. As much as I wanted to be heard there. I'm sorry, being heard and being received is two different things. I wasn't being received. My position and my comments and my emotions would not be received. And so I extracted myself from those environments. And there's this one person who just kept firing stuff at me. So finally I had to hit the block button. And that's for my soul. You know, that's for my well-being, because otherwise, and this person is an elder of mine, and I shouldn't have to, it's not worth all that. Just let that person be in their corner and keep it moving. So, you know, you got to take care of yourself, and that, you know,
For sure.
remember, in order to get that money under your pillow, you had to lose a tooth.
I love that.
Something else that I think is worth sort of recognizing, and something that you said, Stephanie, that I don't know is as true as we'd like it to be, but I don't know that everybody believes that Black lives matter. I'm not sure that everybody believes that life matters. There's a lot of folks that I know that are in sort of, that I encounter in my networks that I deliberately do not block for the sake of diversity, because I'm always trying to engage them, but that really seem to feel that life is a commodifiable thing, and that your life is worth more or less according to any number of factors, usually something to do with money and something to do with their vision of what your worth and your success is. And very often these individuals have a lot of antiquated, inaccurate constructs in their brain and in their worldview telling them that Black people are worth less. Not full-on enslavement mentality as is yesteryear's version of that, but a contemporary version of that. That they'll have statistics, they'll talk about prison populations, they'll have a lot of reasons for why Black people gotta fix themselves, instead of acknowledging that there's a massive situation here that really everyone's a victim of. When I think about the everyone being a victim, I'm a person who always looks for opportunity, and so I always look for where are there new possibilities for the human condition? And if we think about geniuses, and an easy example is like Einstein or Picasso, these are people that people tend to not debate. These people were geniuses. How many geniuses has the human race lost due to the enslavement and captivity of a people? And because I'm a United States citizen, I focus, you know, kind of on our country. And so I look at our 400 plus years of that sort of thing here in our history. And how many geniuses, how many medical cures are lost? How many aesthetic and philosophical approaches to enlightening the human condition are gone because they were whipped to death somewhere. They were just beat down. And so there's a lot of folks who simply do not acknowledge the value of life beyond fiscal. And they can't see the possibilities that have been lost, and they can't see what they themselves have lost due to these institutionalized injustices that really step on everybody. And as you observed, I think very compassionately and very intelligently, in terms of not letting things divide us, it's important to sort of recognize that everyone gets hurt by this to different degrees with different burdens. You know, I think we all know that. But I think sometimes I encounter folks, the light and bright folks, Caucasians, humans, white people that you know, my demographic sort of territory, that tend to not quite understand how dangerous all this is, how bad with a capital B this all is, and how they're suffering, how their children are suffering, how everybody's suffering from this to different degrees in different ways. And they have these constructs in their mind that then tell them why somebody else's life isn't as important as theirs, isn't as important as their grandfather's heritage is more important than somebody else's grandfather's heritage. You just find these things. And so in the interest of clarity and knowing what fight we're fighting, I think sometimes I'm fighting to help people understand that they're not actually recognizing that all lives matter. They might want to throw that phrase around, but they're not actually doing that. And that's why we need the Black Lives Matter movement and other movements too. But Black Lives Matter is a really good one right now that's coalescing. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out, this notion that there are a lot of folks who, I don't know that it's true that we're trying to that we all agree that Black Lives Matter and we're just trying to figure out the best way to do it. I think there's some folks who actually don't have that understanding, don't really have a deeper understanding of this. That's my thought.
Man, there's some folks that don't believe fat meat is greasy.
There are some people who think that the world is still flat.
Going off more what like Nick said in terms of like people not understanding that like yes, systemic racism hurts Black people, was not built for, like the system was not built to protect Black people. Just more on, so like the past week I've been like watching more documentaries and learning more about lynching, just because I believe what's happening right now to Black people in the streets, literally people hanging from trees and literally dying at the hand of police, I believe is modern day lynching. But just what's been happening in terms of that, someone brought up the idea that there is a trauma, yes, experienced in the Black community from having to witness the terror and experience the terror of what that was when it was very prevalent. But there's also the trauma that is not accounted for from people who witnessed it, people who were in the streets, children who actually were taken. Like if you look at pictures of lynchings from back in the day, people are dressed in their Sunday best, witnessing, watching this as a spectacle, right? So they're not under, like there's a trauma that gets implanted in at a very young age, and there are children in the audience, and they don't understand that that child in that picture is most likely still alive. That child in that picture, if not is still alive, has a child. So not far removed from that is still alive today. And so all of that compounds in a way that is not, we don't even know what that we don't even know how to currently address that because it's not really talked about. Like we understand the terror and the tangible nature of how it's affected Black people, but there's also a trauma and a wound that has been left in white people from knowing, like from growing up and learning and being indoctrinated with those ideas and those thoughts and those images that this is something that is normal. Like seeing someone that looks like that, their body's being brutalized in a way is something that you should just be like, oh, it just happens. And so, so Nick, to talk about constructs inside people's minds of, well, all life doesn't actually matter. That is a product of some of that, you know?
Oh, can I add something? That's, I mean, what Nick said about Black people fixing themselves, or that people saying that Black people fix themselves. I don't remember exactly how you said it, but I've heard a lot of that too. Like I said, listening to a lot of different perspectives, and I respect that in the sense of, I've been hearing a lot of like Black influencers saying that, and I respect that in the sense of, you know, you want to, that's their way of trying to take back power, is saying, you know, we can do this ourselves. We don't need anyone. And I respect that, but I also think that, the more people that can help, the better, because y'all have been through, you have, you know, deep rooted trauma in your history, right? So it's like, we also got to be kinder to you. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm saying this more as a question. Like, I don't know if you agree with that, but I've sort of had that thought where, like, you know, for the idea of, you know, raiding and destroying things and destroying property and ruining people's businesses and stuff, that's wrong, right? You know, that's not good. But at the same time, we got to look at it from that perspective of this, they're at a point where that's the only thing that they feel like, that's the only way that they feel like they're going to be heard. And they've gone through a completely different life that we don't understand. We were not raised the same way, you know? And at least from what I've understood, like that's the only way that they feel like they can be heard. So we got to be kind to them, you know? So I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up because I think that is a lot of people's perspective. You know, what about Black on Black crime, and what about this and that? And it's like, okay, but you know, that means we got to be helping them out because they're going through it. They've had a harder life because of racism, because of everyday things that little people do, because of deep-rooted history, because of laws that people set up. They're going into more prisons. You know, their families are broken because their dads are sent to prison a lot more statistically than ours are, you know? So,
let me just chime in on that.
I said a lot that are like,
no, it's fine. It's fine. You're saying, like, you're saying everything that is hitting your mind, and just know that what you're thinking and what you're saying and what you're hearing is not only exclusive to you. Like, there are other people saying the same thing, because I'm seeing a lot of people talk about Chicago. Everybody wants to go to Chicago. Everybody wants to talk about that experience. And we can't keep making the argument, well, if you're saying Black Lives Matter, why are you not talking about Chicago? Like, there are neighborhoods amongst every race that are dealing with some of these oppressions that we're seeing. We can't just only talk about it because Black lives are the most affected right now. And like I said, with Stephanie, the main thing I wanted to also pinpoint with your point is the main thing that people have to realize is this is not just a Black issue. Like, yes, Black people are affected, but this is a human rights issue, because we've also seen it hit the Latinx community with families being detained and kept in cages, separated from each other. We've seen it hit the Native American communities with, you know, the settling in the early 1600s. We've seen it in every nationality. We've seen it in every race. So, in also talking about the LGBTQIA community as well, when you're talking about people potentially being fired just based on who they love and who they're with. So everybody is affected by this. This is a human rights issue. You, like Nick hit it on the head. Like, it really shouldn't be hard for people to say Black Lives Matter, because they do believe Black Lives Matter. It's just not in the way that they want to admit that it is. Because I'm gonna just take it to sports. Black Lives Matter when a game is on the line.
Yeah.
But Black lives don't matter when we're off the field. Like, nobody's really talking about that.
You're brilliant on Sunday, but you're just like me on Monday.
Exactly. So I just Stephanie, because I know you mentioned a lot of things about being overwhelmed and being burned out, and I just want you to know, like, those things are valid. Like, it's okay. Like, after a while, when you fight for so long, even if you think about boxing or UFC, whatever fight you think about, you give it your all for a certain amount of time, then you take a break, you get some water. Like, Soli and I had this very same conversation, because she talked about how she was burned out. And I was like, yo, well, I've been off social media for a month, so I'm ready to hop in the ring now. So now while you get your water, I'm gonna hop in and fight for you.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing that we're doing right now. Like, everybody's got their time to give their input. They've got their time to talk to their people, but then there's going to be a time where you got to take a little break, and then you got to jump back in and fight when you're ready. And just know that, you know, because we know you, like, we know you, we support you, and you know that you have a safe space anytime you're feeling a certain way about something. And I hope that over time, some of those same people who are burned out and who are overwhelmed and feeling like people are not listening to them will actually reach out to someone who is close to them. Instead of trying to engage a bunch of people, talk to one person. Do your research, but talk to one person and start from there. So I just had to chime in on that, because I think the other thing we just got to realize is, like, this is not just about Black people. Like, Black people are the ones being emphasized right now, rightfully so, because that white-Black dynamic is the root of our country. It is the root of it. It is, and we can't ignore that. But also know too that what you're feeling is not it's not taboo. So just know that, like, it's okay to feel that way. But when you're ready, when you need to take your water break, just be ready. You know, we're going to jump in and fight with you. And then when you're ready to come back in, then, you know, we're right there. We're in this together.
Absolutely.
So wait, can I ask a question though? So, I mean, I guess my main question was, yeah, like where's the balance between, I don't know how to word it. The
Well,
balance.
you
This
talk,
is a safe space,
talk-
babe. This is a
Okay.
safe space.
you talk about balance, and I want you to ask that so that we can reply to it, because I think this would be a good segue into a question that Daniel had about that balance, because I definitely want to hear from him about.
No.
Go ahead. No. Go ahead and ask your question.
The question was where's, you know, the balance between, you know, Black people, like I said, I want to understand their perspective, and I want to be kinder to them than I think that a lot of people are. But at the same time, I want them to be empowered so that they don't feel y'all don't feel like in the victim mentality anymore. You know, what are your ideas on that?
Well,
Okay, I'm gonna speak. So I feel like the best way to make someone not feel like a victim is just don't treat them like a victim. It's not about worrying about them. Like, don't worry about them until they tell you or ask you to worry about them. It's my personal experience in feeling like, and if anyone tries to baby me, it annoys me. Like, don't talk down to me. Like have a conversation with me. And like, if I tell you what I need, or if you ask me how can I help you, and I tell you this is how you can help me, that's what you like. Either you're in a position to do that, or you're not in a position to do that. And there's no kind of victimization that needs to happen, because you don't have to protect. It's not your job to protect anyone. Your job is to listen. Your job is to execute in the ways that you're being called upon to execute. Anything like pity is not necessary. Being sorry is not necessary. Feeling guilty is not necessary. Because however you feel, I promise you, whoever you're talking to probably feels it even more. It's just about, okay, we can't sit in this. Like, let's make an action plan. So I feel like action helps to combat, and action can be just a matter of like, today I'm going to share 3 Black businesses that I know, or today I'm going to, instead of, you know, shopping at XYZ store, I'm going to shop at XYZ store because I know that's a Black owned business. Like, those kinds of things, they're small decisions, but they're intentional decisions. And you don't have to feel like I'm not doing enough. You don't have to feel like I have to like do some grand gesture, because it's not about grand gestures. It's about being intentional. It's about listening, and it's about meeting someone where they're asking you to meet them. You know, if they say, I need this, you have it within you to say, I can do that, or I can't do that, but I can help you this far. Like, you have to be cognizant of your own boundaries as well. So don't feel like you need to don't feel like you need to be anything more than Stephanie to do what needs to be done.
Thank you.
I want to
that's exactly
bounce
what
off of that a little bit.
Thank you, Zolia. You're amazing.
I want to bounce off of that a little bit and just add that, like, to that point of like showing up and just being present and doing those small bites, you know, as one of Solia, my mentors, say, you know, you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? Like, you can't eat the whole elephant yourself. So what can you do that is you know, methodical, on purpose, and positive. And I realized, and I was saying this to Nick just the other day during our video shoot for my next single, is that also be mindful of how you present that, you know, being mindful of, you know, I realized there was a movement of sorts recently where everybody was every Latin writer was encouraged to call a brother to check in on them and see how they were doing, and therefore, like, several of my friends were saying, like, what the truck? Like, why is it that I've suddenly got people that I've not talked to in 4 months, let alone 3 years, calling up to see, oh, hello, token black friend, how are you? Just want to check that your soul's fine. Being really, because that
Got a few of
that
those
can
steps,
help.
yeah.
That's further victimizing the person, further being like, oh, hey, I just realized you might be as somebody who's been discriminated upon your entire freaking life. How can I finally show up and do something? But also it's almost like it can come across, and I'm not speaking for everybody's experiences. Obviously, I'm not a black man, but a lot of the feedback I got was, it's almost like, don't let your guilt lead you. Don't let your oblivion lead you. We're all waking up now, and it's beautiful. Meet people where they're at, but also meet yourself where you're at. Don't feel forced to be like, oh, hey, suddenly I realize that I've not been shopping at this black-owned business. I'm just gonna now campaign to get every mother trucker to whatever it is. Like, let love lead you. Don't let guilt lead you. Does that make sense? Yeah.
And another thing that you can do is how you engage with big business. When you learn that big business is not in support of the movement, you shut them off. You shut them off. And the thing in your case in particular, Stephanie, is you have a very domestic life outside of you being an artist, and you're raising a young person that this time is going to affect after I'm pushing daisies. And this is a major opportunity for you, an amazing opportunity for you to teach your offspring about equality on every level of humanity, and how you can use your power with your pocketbook and your credit card, in addition to still doing commerce with people that you normally wouldn't, or that it's just something that you hadn't considered. So, there's some folks, I can send you a list, and who just don't get my dollars anymore. And actually, the thing is, I was just reflecting, there's a tennis shoe manufacturer who years ago, when South Africa was still under apartheid, they were making sneakers in South Africa. And I shut them off in 1987 and have yet to wear anything or purchase anything with that label on it since then. And I just was like, oh, hell no. That's just, no, that's not what we're doing. So, there's all kinds of ways.
Thanks, Billy.
Totally.
I'd at least like to mention there that a conversation I had with somebody this week about Facebook and Facebook sponsors. We're on Facebook, and Facebook is a tool. It would to cut off sponsorships or like to cut off people completely from Facebook is a little like saying, hey, you're not allowed to use, Bell Atlantic Communications back when they had every telephone line in America, right? So what the way to affect Facebook is financially, like utilizing Facebook in the way that we're doing right now, and having these kinds of healthy conversations is also kind of fighting the policy that Facebook has to turn around, but in the conversation was that I'd mentioned that Verizon had dropped Facebook advertising and Instagram advertising. And in their mind, that was almost the clinching point as a reason why they should maybe consider stopping their Facebook advertising, because there's a concern that if it's just their $20 or $30 monthly, ad costs, right, that it won't have a great effect. And so it's important that there is a public discourse on the kinds of companies that you're mentioning, Billy. I know you're trying to be diplomatic in a public forum about them, but there should be some way of having a discourse about them. And it doesn't have to be like, I hate them, I disagree with everything that they believe in, but it's to say, I'm not going to support them because of this. And so there can and has to be and should be more of us making those kinds of commitments and having a way of sharing that this is a factual reason why I don't support this company. I'm not telling you what you should do, but I'm just saying this is one factual reason why I won't support this company. And that can be something that is done personally, but also something that can be shared socially. It's not a like a blanket dismissal of people's concerns for athletic footwear, right? It's just saying that if you're going to choose your athletic footwear, you should have all the facts when you go to make your next buying decision. So having a conversation about things like the finances or companies you support, companies you don't support, I think that's really healthy discourse and should be public knowledge, maybe from Capital Groove's Facebook page or something.
Yeah, just
or website.
A document that we can
One
share.
thing to note, Starbucks actually just pulled their Facebook advertising as well. That was $95 million. So just
Wow.
building on, like, Stephanie, what you talked about, like, how can you empower? Like, how can you have those conversations, but yet empower? We know that a lot of things in this world are driven by money. The dollar is the most influential piece of how you can empower somebody, even for us as artists. If somebody goes on Bandcamp and buys our song for $1, that empowers us to continue making that music. So it's kind of it's a very similar thing. And it's not saying that just because we're all on about supporting Black businesses that you just have to uproot every single thing that you've ever done. Like, I mean, there are ways that you can support a Black business doing things that you've already done, doing things that you're already doing, whether it's, trying a local restaurant or going to a bookstore or, things like that. Again, you don't have to do everything, but just do something, just do one thing and start from there. Dan, you had something to say?
You don't have to do it all at once. I mean, I think that there's like an immediate thing, but if anything, just our like extended conversations in this show, that this is a long conversation to be had. And so today I'm not going to support, today I'm not going to buy my shoes from this company. And when I know better about a company that sells coffee, I'll make a question, like a decision on where I buy my coffee or where I buy my clothes. Like, you don't have to like create a spreadsheet today, and enact all these changes immediately. You're allowed to phase your life and your family through them and progress towards a better end.
I want to take this moment to really give gratitude to everybody who is showing up, specifically you guys, obviously, as members of the CGC, but anybody who is watching this and who is actively taking the time to think on these issues and to make decisions that are more socially conscious and more in alignment with a better, more positive future for the betterment of the United States, the betterment of the world, because as you mentioned earlier, Jerome, these are issues that have, obviously been affecting Black Americans for, hundreds and hundreds of years, but they also are issues that, are prevalent within Asian countries, within the Pacific countries, within New Zealand, within Australia, within, there's so many countries that deal with, with racial segregation and economic divide and just all of the systemic oppression, all the systemic oppression that we are afflicted with when we're born, let alone as we grow up with and learn about as we grow up. One of the things that I am really proud about, especially in the artivistic community, is how musicians and creatives are digging into music as a way of empowering communities around us to look within themselves, to dig deep, if you will.
See what you did there.
And I mean, and figure out ways in which we can be part of the solution in a positive, empowering, and beautiful way. So on that note, that was me really subtly foreshadowing what this next question is about. If you are not aware and you are watching this and you've been following the Capital Groove Collective or any one of our artists for a while, we recently hit the studio at Fairhill Studios in Suitland, Maryland, to record our first Capital Groove Collective collaborative Capital Groove Collective collaborative track, try saying that 10 times fast, which is a song that we wrote and are releasing. It's called Dig Deep. And I'm really honored and thrilled to be part of this, not only because, you know, I've been learning about systemic racism really in the last 5 years since I've been living in the States, but to have then founded the Capital Groove Collective and accidentally stumble across these beautiful souls like yourselves who happen to be artivists as well. What's been the process like for you guys as artivists, as you're learning about, you know, what it is to create music that empowers people and speaks through these times? And also, how do you balance that with your everyday lives and social media content and so on and so on?
I'll go first. So as a Black woman, my mere existence is political, is extraordinary, is something to be discussed by everyone because they feel like it's their right. So I feel like one of the things that I've always, especially in recent years, is that I feel like I owe it to myself to not just be the artivist, to be like, you know, Black Lives Matter and Black Power and say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud. I am all those things by sheer nature. But I find it very important to just write a song about nothing of those, like nothing specifically speaking about those things, just because the fact that I would sing a song like that in public in and of itself is like I've said before, a revolutionary act. To dare to just live as a person without having to qualify it, without having to, you know, put an activist stamp on it, is literally one of the biggest things that I can do. Like, I love movies about our history. I love learning about those things. They hit me right in the feels. But you know what else I love? I like movies where people are foolish. I like movies where people are doing nonsense without having to be anything more than what they are. And they also look like me. Like, those things are just as important to being an activist, an artivist, as saying out loud, you know, Mississippi goddamn. Like, it's not something that I feel the need to, like, I had prior to 2020, I've not felt the need to say it out loud. I do say it out loud now. However, I do not operate in the sphere of like, now I'm a singer-songwriter and I'm writing the song and it must be about me being Black and it must be about me being a woman and it must be about saying something to Black. Like, I stay away from that because it's exhausting, because that is what my life is on a daily basis. So to just write a song about being in love or not being in love or being angry or being like feeling the full spectrum of emotions, I think is as big and as important as doing a song like Dig Deep.
Like that saying, like, your joy is your weapon, right?
Yeah, like being joyful and just writing about flowers and daisies without it having to have a specific meaning, without it having to be like, oh, what is she trying to say? I'm trying to say that that's a flower and that's a daisy. Like, like that's it. That's all I'm trying to say. There's nothing profound other than the fact that you think it's profound because of what I look like while saying those things. That is the only thing that makes it profound. So there we go.
Thank you.
And that's really unfortunate that your motives are questioned when you write about a flower and a daisy. You know, Marvin Gaye, he did that stuff, but he was talking about other stuff. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing, blah, blah, blah. You know, and so I guess for a person like me, that's awesome that you do that. But for me, I feel, first of all, I've been doing it all my life. My last name is coincidentally Mayfield, one of the, you know, biggest Black protest musicians to ever exist in the United States.
Mm.
Yeah, I've just been listening to that all my life. And when it wasn't that, I was raised in a household that a lot of gospel music was being heard. So I've been listening to Mahalia Jackson and Sister Rosetta Tharpe and James Cleveland, I don't know, since I could breathe. And so those things, needless to say, they cross-pollinate in countless ways. So as I sit here today, at my age and my life experiences, yeah, that's kind of the only thing to talk about. Talk about love, talk about the world not being as great as it could be. And that's just me. That I don't require that for anyone else. And actually, that's my problem more than it's just me. You know, find something silly to write about. And one of the things that I reflected on as you were speaking about, that's great to see nonsense, because one of the biggest blessings we've had probably in the last 10 years was Keen and Peele. Their show was like two brothers that were just like straight wackadoodles, and they were brilliant. They are brilliant.
The code switching, and like
all the above, all of the above. They were just so amazing. That was art. They just happened to be brothers.
Mm-hmm.
That was
Hey, Ron.
You done messed up, Ron.
You done messed up, Ron. Nah, that's so prevalent, man. But one of the taglines that I've been using now, which I think will not die from this moment on, is "My success is my protest." And for me as a Black man, and I know, you know, Billy, you obviously relate to this. You've obviously been on this earth a little while longer than me and seen some more things, but you know, I wasn't trying to extend it. See, Nick over here like
it's all good.
It out. I was trying to be diplomatic about it.
Because I'm a pretty Black man.
Hey, I
yeah, you are.
I'm talented. I'm healthy, and I'm loved. I'm good.
Yeah, but I say that because it's kind of similar to what Solia was saying. Like, me personally, I don't feel like I have to create a bunch of songs that say Black Lives Matter or, you know, some of these like bigger, more charged phrases. There are other ways to make those points. You know, I think when we have these taglines like "Dig Deep," I had a couple songs I was working on. One was called "RealTalk" because, again, it's something that in no relation, but yes. But it was, again, because it's something that relates to the state that we're in right now. And what is it that we need to do moving forward so that everyone feels involved, not just Black people. So like for me, it's kind of like, I don't want to keep stating the obvious, because some of our influences, like Billy mentioned, if you think about Marvin Gaye and Stevie Wonder and War, and I could go on that whole Motown Vietnam War era. They did that. When Solia mentioned Nina Simone, Mississippi Goddamn, like that transformed her entire career, because she went from, you know, being this classical jazz singer to being, you know, an activist essentially. And the crazy thing was, you know, at that time, she was shunned for it, but now we're seeing her as one of the most revered artivists of our time. And so, you know, we had our influencers do that at a time that I feel was way more charged than what we're dealing with right now, because some of the stuff that they had to go through is like, we don't hold a candle to that. I mean, like I said, yeah, some of the experiences are very similar, but we're also not in a Jim Crow era, or so we hope, so we think. We're not in that era. There is the Civil Rights Act, but like I said, there has been some progress, but also somebody mentioned it about the generations, like how those generations are still living, those generations are still connected. So because of that, that relation is still there. So we still deal with it. Like it's something that we're still confronting, but at the same time, we do have this power of music, and that a lot of people don't have the gift of. And so when we can put our thoughts and our emotions into the songs in a way that not just people who look like us can relate, but everybody can relate. Because I think it's, you know, it's safe to say when we talk about what's going on, that prime song right there, doesn't matter what color you are, everybody can relate to that song. So I try to focus on moments like that in terms of when it comes to digging deeper, because just in my DNA, I want everybody to feel involved. I want the music that I create to be inclusive. Because that's the world that I want to envision. That's the world that I'm trying to create. So, you know, like I said, that's kind of how I'm choosing to dig deeper. And that's why I love the project that we were working on, because we address all of those things. You know, just striving for love and unity and diversity, and just shutting out hate. I mean, those are like fundamental foundational principles that, you know, I wish we were reenacting a little bit better, but it's something we're still
leading the change, man.
Yeah.
We're leading the change.
Yeah.
I would definitely say though, while I say I do want to write about whatever I want to write about, I do have in mind, I am specifically speaking to people, to the person that looks like me, the little young Black girl who's a little weird. She likes anime. She's a nerd. She's what have you. Like, I'm speaking directly to her because it's necessary to while I do want to include, like, whoever relates to my music, come on in. There's room for everybody here. But you little girl, you little Black girl, people told you were weird. People told you were strange. I am speaking directly to you, and I am here for you. Like, you are my purpose. And I think that is important. I don't know, I'm not saying about anybody, but I personally feel like it is important because, like, I didn't grow up seeing myself in the people that I loved to listen to. Like, I loved Britney Spears. So when I came across, like, when I found Lizzo, what? She was a band geek. I was an orchestra. She's a big girl. I'm a big girl. She's loud. I'm loud. Like, so, like, the power that has, don't underestimate that power. What it's like for, like, little Jerome to have seen grown-up Jerome do what he do and get up there and pump up a crowd. Like, I think it's important to speak to the people that look like us. Yes, while still, like I said, everyone if you relate to my music, there are people who tell me that they relate to my music and they don't look like me. They're welcome. I embrace them with open arms. But the little girls that come up to me, like, that say, oh my gosh, and like they're looking at me and like they have this like admiration in her, I reach out to her specifically. Because it's I didn't have that. And that is part of why I think it's important to just have the fun, silly songs, because I was a carefree kid. I was the dreamy one. My head was in the clouds. So to have someone that was like the people that I love to listen to, but also look like me. Like, when I found Fifi Dobson in high school, I was like, whoa, there's a Black girl that plays guitar and I play guitar. Like, the profound impact of that is so, like, don't underestimate that.
I love that. I totally agree with you, because, you know, when I first moved here to the States and everybody was like, oh, so you must do R&B and soul and you play guitar, so you must sound exactly like Tracy Chapman. I'm like, sure. But you're right. Like, play to your little self. Play to your, be that change. And I think that's one of the great things about, you know, the CGC is that, and many of the other artists, is that we're able to to fill that role. We've already gone over time, but I want to run into Joe. Did you have something else that you wanted to say? You look like you're about to.
I specifically wanted to ask the question to Daniel because he mentioned something when we asked about, you know, what we wanted to bring up, and that was this topic of social media. And
cool. So this will be the last question for the for this week, and then we'll bring back the rest of the questions for this week for next week. If anybody does have any questions who's watching this that you'd like to answered, please send them through to capitalgroovecollective@gmail.com or DM them to us. Sorry, over to you, Jero.
Yeah, so Daniel, I wanted to forward this question to you because, and I'm paraphrasing, so I do want you to kind of give your full viewpoint on this, but you mentioned that you were kind of feeling this sense of unease when it came to posting your regular content over, you know, support of the Black Lives Matter or support of current events. And I wanted you to elaborate further on that, and also just so we as a unit could engage it as well.
Sure. And definitely I'll say that everything that I've learned so far, I think it's been helpful, but I'm always open to like a new perspective or an additional opinion or another viewpoint for it. I had like intended first and foremost for the song Information to have some meaningful social impact. And so wanted to be able to put the song out into the public now in a respectful way. And I got great help in doing that through the Capital Groove Collective and the feedback. And then when I started to look at, you know, kinds of the things that I might normally share, like a thing with my family, a book I'm reading with my kids, or like an activity at the park or the playground, or like my photo shoot with Nick, or even just like the concept of introducing a new song and, you know, like, hey, I've got another song coming out and I want to draw attention to it. Like these concepts pale in comparison to what's happening in our news feeds right now. And so aside from just in like a small world perspective, like how is me sharing a photo shoot, you know, going to have a positive perspective, you know, on the planet during this time? How's it going to make a positive contribution? And so the help that I received from Emma and Solia and others was to continue as I am, that I must be a complete person in order to be able to share anything on social media, whether it's in support of a Black Lives Matter movement or a picture with me with my kid, like that the audience that I'm trying to reach and the lives I'm trying to change, the hearts I'm trying to keep warm, like these things are impossible if I'm not always my true self or showing the complete picture of who I am. Because if my music was just something about me being a father, that's a part of who I am, but it's not the entirety of who I am. Or if you know, the fact that I'm working with you know, Alchemical Records and trying to like a music publishing component, like that's a piece of who I am, but that's not the entirety of who I am. Yellow Tie Guy is not all I'm capable of musically, lyrically, songwriting. It's just a persona, or like it's one avenue to release music through. And so that's been the advice that I've been given, is that to continue to give the purest picture of my complete self. And I'd say that's been helpful so far.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It has. And I just wanted to reply to that specifically because I've noticed that I've had this conversation with a lot of friends recently that there's this whole thing that if you're not posting enough, that you don't care, or if you're posting too much, you're too woke. Like, it's like, what's the balance? Like, what's the bottom line? So to reply to what you're saying, the advice that I have been giving people, you kind of hit it on the head. You're a whole person. You're not just the platform that you are publicizing to everybody. And I think the important thing too is, especially when you think about a platform like Instagram, is also like, don't forget the power that your stories have. Not just the posts, but also what you put on your daily feed of stories. So if there's something that resonates with you and you want to share it, share it. You know what I mean? But then you can also have your actual feed be geared around majority of, you know, whatever platform or whatever username that you are focusing on for that particular thing. And it's not to say because you're posting about that versus arrest the cops that killed Breonna Taylor that you don't care about the movement. That's because we all recognize that we are whole people. We have many different ideas. We have many different viewpoints on what's going on. And we also are running businesses. So we're trying to do all of those things while still being functioning humans. So I would say mainly, like, I mean, from the content I've seen you do, like, I personally have not seen anything like wrong with it, because yeah, you have children, like you post about you and your kids, and then obviously you post about your projects, but then there's also like the one-off here and there where you're sharing something about what's going on in current events that's resonating with you. That is the part of you being a human. So I don't think that there's a quote unquote right answer to how little or how much you post. I would just say the main thing is just post what you care about, post what resonates with you, post what makes you feel some kind of way, you know, what gets you in the feels, but also use it as a moment to educate, you know, that you're educating yourself. But then also, if there's something that you learn along the way that you want to spread to your network, you know, don't assume that just because something has traveled, a post has traveled, that everyone has seen it. Like if it resonates with you, share it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Also, to that point, like to what Stephanie was saying before about, you know, burning out. If you focus solely on one aspect of the world, there's no way that you're not going to burn out. You know what I mean? Like, we're all fighting this fight, but we all have different facets to ourselves. If I only posted about, you know, I mean, pre-COVID, every uprising, everything. If I only posted about music, I would burn myself out. You know, there's more to me than a musician. There's more to me than being an artivist. There's more to me than being a woman. You know, it's just about exactly what Jero was saying. Post what resonates with you in the moment, and learn, like, take those moments to educate and empower you and your audience with what you're learning about. And also, on that note, still recognizing that it's still okay to like learn, be vulnerable about your learnings. Be vulnerable about saying, oh, I posted this thing, you know, a month ago that I've learned is actually false, or I've rethought my thought processes around this, and I'm learning, I'm growing as a light and brighter, and this is what I've learned today that is putting me in a more positive direction. And also, here's my next single.
Right. And just know, Daniel, too, that everybody is thinking that. There's times where even when I'm posting things, like, of course, because people see us as Black people, they think that, of course, we're going to post about, you know, and yes, I can honestly say that majority of my posts ever since I came back on socials have been around the movement. But that's because I've been so charged to do something about it. And it's different levels for everybody. This is going to hit everybody in different ways. So just also remember that, like, it may not hit you the exact same way that it does somebody else, but you still have a reaction to it. You still are affected by something. So, you know, with all that being said, you know, we share the bits and pieces that resonate with us the most. And like I said, and you just kind of, you go from there. But we all hit it differently. And, you know, hey, when you want to post about your kids, don't feel ashamed about posting about your kids. Like, that's who you are. That's part of your life.
Especially if you're encouraging them to be like social justice warriors as well, you know, all for it.
I see something cute happening with a little baby that ain't my kid that I don't even know. I'm posting it.
Yes.
That brings it down. In fact, go on my page. There's this little dude. He couldn't be more than 14 months old, and it's time to go. He's walking around and he's at an outdoor concert and he's giving everybody a hug goodbye.
Yes, I saw that.
He just knows it's time to go home, so he got to give everybody a hug. And he
love that video.
And who's gonna turn down a little baby hug?
I'm not.
I mean,
I'm not.
hug dealer right here, y'all. Hug dealer right here. I feel you.
and that gives a twist to the other stuff that I put up that can be, yeah, I'm coming for you. I'm verbally with information coming for you because we need change. And that's part of my dig deep. But that baby is also part of my dig deep because if we had more of that, we wouldn't have this other bullshit that's going on.
That's right.
That right there.
Man.
Word. And on that note, friends, we've come to the end of this episode of Real Talk with the Capital Grove Collective, hosted by me, Emma G. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, if you have any questions that you want us to discuss in next week's episode, which again will be at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Capital Grove Collective Facebook page. That is 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That is 10 a.m. New Zealand time. If you're in another country, do the math. I'm not with it. That's as many numbers as I can fit into my brain. But if you do have any questions that you want us to discuss or specific topics that you want us to talk about for, around the issues of the George Floyd murder, the Black Lives Matter movement, how artists can show up, how we can all show up as a community, please feel free to send them through. In the meantime, be good, be kind, spread love like it's going out of fashion, be your own kind of superhero, dig deep within yourselves, my friends, because you guys are all superstars in our eyes. Keep an eye out for our upcoming single, of course, called Dig Deep, shameless plug. And of course, please, for the love of music and saving lives and being the change, do not forget to call your mom.
Call your mom. Baby boy, I'm gonna call her now.